Today we're exploring a story that unfolded in Virginia, USA. As the summer of 2005 drew to a close, 17-year-old Taylor Beal eagerly anticipated the next chapter of her life. She was excited to begin her freshman year at Virginia Commonwealth University in Richmond and was busy planning her future. However, before classes could even begin, Taylor vanished without a trace. Taylor Marie Beal was born on October 13, 1987, as the only child of Janet and Matt Beal. Her parents divorced when she was about 2 years old, and she was raised by her mother in Vienna, Virginia. Taylor graduated from high school in 2005, and in August, she moved to Richmond to begin her freshman year at Virginia Commonwealth University. Like many young adults preparing for college, Taylor was both excited and nervous about this new phase of life. She often expressed her thoughts online, writing in one blog post, "I just graduated from high school, and now I'm off to Richmond. I'm looking forward to meeting people there because I only know a few people, but I love meeting new people in general. Feel free to message me anytime to chat." Before classes started, Taylor moved into a dorm and shared a room with another freshman named Emma. In a phone call to her mother, Taylor mentioned meeting many new people and forming a friendship with her roommate. On the evening of September 5, 2005, Emma's boyfriend visited their dorm room. Not wanting to intrude, Taylor took her room and car keys, saying she'd return in a few hours to meet some friends, and then left. However, Taylor never came back. The next day, Emma attended her classes, but when she returned to the room that evening, she noticed Taylor's belongings were untouched from the previous day. Realizing that Taylor had missed the first day of classes and hadn't returned, Emma grew concerned. She decided to contact campus police to report her roommate missing. Taylor's car was also missing. Once the campus police received the report about her possible disappearance, they inspected her dormitory. Officers found some of Taylor's personal items, including her prescription medications, still in her room, suggesting she hadn't planned to leave for an extended period. Police began patrolling the campus, searching for Taylor and her vehicle, but their efforts turned up nothing. Attempts to call her phone went straight to voicemail. The next step was to contact Taylor's mother, Janet, to check if she might have returned home. Janet lived 2 hours away from Richmond and was taken by surprise when the police called. She had assumed Taylor was attending her first classes that day and hadn't wanted to disturb her. Immediately worried, Janet started calling Taylor's phone, but there was no response. Fearing the worst, she got into her car and drove to Richmond. She had a sinking feeling that something was terribly wrong. When Janet arrived, she spoke with the police and went to Taylor's dorm room, where she met her daughter's roommate, Emma. Examining Taylor's belongings, Janet's concern deepened. Her purse, medication, and other valuables were still there, and Janet began to fear that Taylor might have been kidnapped or was in serious trouble. She and Taylor shared a close bond, especially after Janet's divorce, which had brought them even closer. While Taylor had been nervous about starting college and her independent life, Janet was equally apprehensive about her daughter being away from home for the first time. Despite Janet's fears, campus police initially believed Taylor was simply spending time with friends and would return soon. They pointed out that it wasn't uncommon for college students to go out without informing anyone. However, Janet found it hard to believe Taylor would leave without notifying her, especially without taking her purse, money, or essential belongings. The campus police began an investigation, questioning Taylor's friends and acquaintances, but no one seemed to know her whereabouts. Determined to find her daughter, Janet made a public appeal through local television, urging anyone with information to come forward. Flyers with Taylor's picture were distributed around Richmond and surrounding areas, and her Ford was placed on a wanted list. 10 days after Taylor's disappearance, the case was handed over to Richmond police, who launched a larger investigation with assistance from the FBI detectives, noted that Taylor's bank account had shown no activity and her phone remained inactive. ominous signs, according to experienced investigators. 12 days after Taylor went missing, there was finally a break. Her car was discovered on a quiet residential street about 2 miles from campus. It wasn't clear whether the car had been parked there from the start or if someone had been using it. The vehicle, found by chance, had license plates stolen from Ohio. The police set up covert surveillance, hoping the car's user might return. But no one approached it during the day. Criminologists and K-9 units were brought in to inspect Taylor's car. Despite a thorough examination, no evidence linked to Taylor or anyone else was found inside the vehicle. However, a K-9 unit picked up a scent around the car and led investigators to a house a few blocks away. The home belonged to an elderly married couple who, as investigators discovered, had no connection to Taylor. However, their nephew Jesse was a skateboarder, which raised suspicions since Taylor had once mentioned to her mother that she was learning to skateboard. This shared hobby could have introduced Taylor to Jesse, prompting investigators to consider him as a potential suspect. The house was searched, but no evidence suggested Taylor had ever been there. Jesse was taken to the police station for questioning, where he claimed he didn't know Taylor Beale. Additionally, he had a solid alibi for the night she went missing. With no evidence linking him to the case, Jesse was removed from the list of suspects and released without any charges. As time passed, Taylor's whereabouts remained a mystery, leaving her mother, Janet, in anguish. For Janet, the uncertainty of her only daughter's disappearance was a living nightmare. Investigators also looked into the origin of the Ohio license plates found on Taylor's car. The owner of the plates was ruled out as a suspect after it was confirmed he had reported them stolen before Taylor's disappearance. However, this raised new questions. Who had placed the stolen plates on Taylor's car, and why? Despite the lack of progress, detectives refused to believe Taylor could have vanished without leaving a trace. Janet, clinging to hope, made an emotional appeal through the media, pleading with anyone who might be holding her daughter captive to release her safely. Meanwhile, the police finally uncovered their first substantial leads. Fingerprints found on Taylor's car's steering wheel did not belong to her. Investigators also reviewed surveillance footage from the entrance of Taylor's dormitory on the night she disappeared. At 10:18 p.m., Taylor was seen entering the building. Moments later, a man appeared on camera, seemingly waiting for someone. At one point, he looked directly into the camera before leaving the frame. A short time later, Taylor was seen exiting the dormitory. The timing was too suspicious to ignore, and detectives quickly connected the man to Taylor's car. When they compared the fingerprints from the car to their database, they found a match. The prints belonged to 37-year-old Benjamin Foley. 2 years before Taylor's disappearance, Benjamin Foley had been arrested for assaulting his ex-girlfriend, an offense that led to a 3-month prison sentence. During the investigation into Taylor's case, police uncovered an unexpected detail. Taylor had met Farley while she was still in high school. In February 2005, Taylor and her father attended an open house at Virginia Commonwealth University, VCU, to learn more about the school's programs and student life. During the visit, Taylor stayed overnight at a friend's apartment, as her friend was already a VCU student. It was there that she met Benjamin Flay, her friend's roommate. Benjamin, commonly known as Ben, was divorced and the father of 2 daughters who lived with their mother. Despite being significantly older, he appeared much younger and led a lifestyle typical of someone half his age. That night, when Ben and Taylor were left alone in the apartment, they had an intimate encounter. After returning home to Vienna, Taylor continued to correspond with Flay via email. Their next meeting occurred during the summer when Taylor visited the campus to handle some pre-enrollment formalities. An amateur photographer, Flay arranged a photo shoot for her. Taylor found his unconventional personality intriguing, and she appreciated how he treated her like an adult. However, despite this connection, Taylor confided to her best friend that while she had no regrets about their intimate relationship, she did not want it to happen again. As the investigation into Taylor's disappearance progressed, Benjamin Flay became the primary and only suspect. Police brought him in for questioning, but he adamantly denied having any involvement in Taylor's disappearance. When confronted with evidence that his fingerprints had been found in her car, Flay admitted to being inside her vehicle multiple times, explaining that they had been in an intimate relationship. He also claimed that he had seen Taylor the evening she went missing, insisting that they spoke briefly before parting ways. Detectives found his story unconvincing and obtained a search warrant for his apartment. What they discovered inside shocked even the most seasoned investigators. During the search of Benjamin Flay's apartment, investigators seized several knives, computers, and CDs. Among the items were thousands of photographs on his hard drive, consistent with Flay's hobby as a photographer. However, what shocked investigators most was a collection of explicit videos featuring teenage boys. Though Flay did not appear in the videos, he had clearly amassed a collection. When questioned, Flay claimed the videos did not belong to him, insisting they were the property of his recently deceased elderly neighbor. However, this story quickly unraveled when investigators found CDs labeled in Flay's handwriting, proving the materials were his. Possession of such content is a criminal offense, and on September 23, 2005, Flay was arrested. Yet, the question remained, was he involved in Taylor Beale's disappearance? Despite mounting suspicion, Flay refused to provide any information. Investigators combed through his computer, uncovering numerous photos of Taylor, along with images of abandoned buildings, unusual symbols, and desolate areas. While troubling, none of this directly tied him to Taylor's disappearance, leaving detectives to dig deeper. Detectives reviewed thousands of photos on Flay's computer and questioned people from his social circle, searching for clues. They theorized that if Taylor was no longer alive, Flay might have hidden her body in a secluded place, possibly one of the locations featured in his photographs. They showed some of these images to Flay's recent ex-girlfriend, who unexpectedly recognized one of the abandoned buildings. She revealed that the house, located near her parents' home in Matthews County, was a place she had once taken Flay to photograph. A caption on the photo read, "Home Sweet Home." Though the house's connection to Taylor was tenuous, its location, 100 miles from Richmond, made it a viable lead. On October 5, 2005, 30 days after Taylor disappeared, officers searched the area. The house, in a remote and secluded location, seemed an ideal hiding place. While investigating the site, officers noticed a foul odor. Following the smell, they found human remains in a shallow ditch. Unfortunately, decomposition and animal activity made immediate identification impossible. However, dental records soon confirmed the remains belonged to Taylor Beale. The discovery devastated Taylor's family. In a heartfelt statement, her mother, Janet, expressed hope that the person responsible for her daughter's death would face the harshest punishment possible. After Taylor's body was found, Flay became more cooperative. Realizing that his fingerprints and DNA found in Taylor's car, coupled with the fact that he was the last person to see her alive, tied him to her death, he changed his approach. With the evidence against him mounting, and already facing serious charges for the explicit material found in his apartment, Flay admitted to being with Taylor the night she died. Flay claimed that on the night Taylor disappeared, she arrived at his apartment visibly upset after breaking up with her boyfriend. According to him, she wanted to get back at her ex. They drank alcohol in his apartment and had intercourse. Afterward, Taylor allegedly expressed interest in something more. They drove to her dorm, where CCTV cameras captured her entering the building to retrieve her car keys. Flay stayed outside while she went in. He claimed that when Taylor returned, she had a printed document describing breath control play, which involved asphyxiation during intimacy. Flay stated that they drove to a remote location in Matthews County, a place he had visited previously, and parked in a deserted area. They moved to the back seat and resumed their intimate activity. According to him, Taylor requested that he choke her during intercourse. At first, he refused, but he alleged that Taylor threatened to report him to the police and her mother, forcing him to comply. He added that he was under the influence of illegal substances at the time. Flay claimed that during the act, Taylor lost consciousness. Panicking, he drove back to Richmond, left her body in the car, and went to bed. The next morning, upon realizing Taylor had died, he covered her with a blanket, drove back to Matthews County, and abandoned her body. Investigators were skeptical of Flay's account, suspecting he was attempting to shift blame onto Taylor. His narrative painted himself as a reluctant participant forced into a tragic situation. However, critical inconsistencies in his story raised doubts. For example, he claimed Taylor died in her car, but trained K-9 units had found no evidence of decomposition or bodily fluids in the vehicle. When confronted with this, Flay claimed he had cleaned the car seats with bleach. Yet forensic experts found no traces or smell of bleach during their examination. Flay continued to adjust his story, adding details to make it more plausible. He insisted that Taylor's death was an accident, attributing it to her request for dangerous behavior. However, investigators questioned why he would drive 100 miles to a remote area if their encounter was consensual. Moreover, the state of Taylor's remains, which were too decomposed to determine a definite cause of death, made it impossible to corroborate Flay's claims. Ultimately, only two people knew the truth about what happened that night: Taylor, who could no longer speak for herself, and Flay, whose version of events left more questions than answers. Taylor's remains had been exposed to the elements and wildlife for a month, complicating the investigation. Detectives reviewed all her social media accounts, emails, internet search history, personal diary, and belongings, but found no evidence to suggest she had any interest in choking games during intimacy. A crucial piece of evidence, a strip of duct tape on the sleeve of Taylor's jacket, contradicted Flay's story. Investigators believed it strongly implied her hands had been bound, challenging Flay's claim that everything was consensual. When confronted about the duct tape, Flay added new details to his narrative, insisting that Taylor had asked to feel kidnapped and requested her hands be tied. He repeatedly emphasized that their actions were mutual and consensual. His defense team later aimed to portray Taylor not as an innocent college freshman, but as someone who willingly participated in such activities. Flay's interests in Gothic culture, art, and skulls, along with his van covered in bumper stickers and license plates, further painted a dark picture. Investigators suspected he had used one of his license plates to disguise Taylor's car, making it harder for the police to track. Facing the likelihood of a life sentence for possessing illegal videos found on his computers and CDs, Flay accepted a plea deal. Though he maintained the incident was accidental, he entered an Alford plea on August 9, 2006, to a second-degree crime. An Alford plea allows a defendant to assert innocence while conceding that the prosecution's evidence is sufficient to secure a conviction. This plea is accepted in most U.S. jurisdictions, except Indiana, Michigan, and New Jersey. Under the agreement, charges related to the possession of illegal videos were dropped. Instead of life imprisonment, Flay received a 30-year sentence and could be eligible for parole in 2031 at the age of 64. During the hearing, Flay occasionally wept but offered no apology. His attorney, William Johnson, stated that Flay, a father of two daughters living with their mother in Pennsylvania, had been reluctant to enter a plea. He contended that Flay thought highly of Taylor and never meant her harm. Johnson said, "He's very emotional and deeply depressed, but has come to terms with his fate." Taylor's mother, Janet, attended the hearing with around 35 relatives. Afterward, she expressed relief that the case had concluded, but admitted it brought little solace. "I'm happy it's over," she said, adding, "But closure. I don't think I'll ever have that. How do you find closure after losing your only daughter? Do you believe there's any truth in Flay's version of events? Share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching this video to the end.